It is officially crunch time, with Golden Demon just over a month away. Seems like the perfect time to stress out over painting one of the most difficult things I've ever done. You know, my favorite thing about painting for Golden Demon is also wrapped up with the most stressful, painful parts of it all. You push, you stress, you second guess, and you fall on your face sometimes. But it's in all that you learn, you grow. It's where your passion opens up to your own unique pathway in this art form. And I know that's a dramatic way to discuss the painting of little toy soldiers. But when you're knee-deep in the shit, sometimes you need to remind yourself of the positive outcomes. And make no mistake, today we are knee-deep in the shit. Quick recap on the work we've done on the Golden Demon project thus far. First, we made a digital mock-up of the scene and composition of our duel. From there, we built the base itself and the models. And then I painted the troll. And yes, the troll is 100% painted, although he's still in a couple of pieces. I'll have to glue him together and give you a final reveal on a later date. Today, we turn our attention to Severith, the flying fox, and the other key figure in our duel. Unfortunately, this model is quite complex and fiddly, so let's walk through how to tackle the hardest parts of this paint job today. We immediately encounter an alarming issue for the painting of this model, and that is its pose. You see, this model is lifted off the ground if we built it right out of the box, and in that traditional build, it has these banners and whippy wind effects that lift it off its base. I won't be using those. I'll be sculpting my own cloth flaps to have Severith appear as if she's flying in the scene. But that means how we're going to adhere her to a painting handle is kind of difficult. Now, I'm going to use sub-assemblies as best I can. The head, the quiver, and the arm that crosses her chest will all be painted separately, but that doesn't solve the issue of adhering the main body to a painting handle in a way that's easy to access and paint. I decided to drill a hole and shove a paperclip through her back, and that will be covered by her quiver in the final assembly, but I'm not very confident that this is going to work. With this method, she's not super stable, and any touching of the model is likely to break free the superglue bond that adheres the paperclip to her back. And because she's got so much movement happening in her sculpt, in all 3 dimensions no less, there is a lot of tight areas on this model that are going to be difficult to reach a brush in. And the lack of the ability to get a firm grip while I'm painting this model means that this is going to bite me in the ass almost immediately. But we're not here to complain, we're here to paint. So let's begin this model in the same method I try to approach all models, and that is painting inside out. And whenever possible, painting some large section of the model first. For Severith, that means her fur. Now, traditionally, fur has a lot of organic blends from one color to another to make it feel like a real creature. And that can be really difficult when all that fur and the transitions I'm trying to make are chopped up by the different sections of armor. I still stick with a wet blending approach to this, allowing the colors to mix naturally on the model. And it's okay if we don't get full coverage here, especially painting over a really light gray primer. I just want to establish where colors were turned from a mid-tone reddish brown up to a darker one, and then to the lighter areas that have more of a cream to them. And even though there are quite a few color transitions throughout this fur, that doesn't mean I need a lot of paints to accomplish this. I just need 3 really unique, bold colors, and I can mix them together in different ways to keep it feeling organic, all part of the same animal, but still come through with vivid, interesting colors. Now, getting paint on the smaller sub-assembly pieces of this job is actually a breeze compared to the cumbersome and awkward main model. It's proving incredibly difficult already with just base coats of maintaining brush control and precision of getting paints where I want it when it's so awkward to hold this model. Now, does this mean I made a mistake in assembly or figuring out how to put the model on a painting handle? I don't think so. Sometimes it's just going to be a pain in the butt. We've all painted models that are much easier to paint and those that are much more difficult. And oftentimes, working with the physical sculpt is a big factor in determining how easy or difficult a model is to paint. I just chose a cool model for the scene, but not necessarily a smart model to paint. So Now, after our initial wet blend, we're going to come back in and reinforce those areas with these colors with thin paint. And this is really an important step. Not only do we need to really smooth out this wet blend, but I need to make sure that these colors are vibrant, are punchy, are pushing to full opacity, because if this initial color layer is not really powerful, we don't have a leg to stand on as we boost up to the highlight step. And what really helped me grasp the benefit of wet blending is when I started to look at it as just the first step of base coating. By using thin layers of paint over top of that initial wet blend, we can harmonize and smooth out the blend quite easily. The only thing that holds us back is how much time we're willing to spend into that smoothing out process for these blends. And this is a great example of growing through pushing yourself in painting for a competition. Now, I know I can make these things as smooth as possible, but typically when I'm just painting for fun, I only add 1 or 2 thin layers over top of the wet blend, so it looks pretty good. But here, by pushing myself as far as possible, I not only figure out how smooth I can make something, but I figure out the quick little tips in application that help me get to a better point faster for future quick paint jobs. Now, when it comes to the highlighting step, I remind myself I am working with an organic material in fur, which means I do not need to add a bunch of extra crazy colors in boosting up these highlights. The only thing I really added was a brighter ivory tone when I really wanted to push the bright highlights. Otherwise, I just try to control them as best I can to ensure that we are showcasing all the interesting details on the sculpt without pushing them way too far over the top with really bold edge highlights. And because this is organic fur and flesh, much of the highlighting step is actually freehanding lines and texture because there are no crisp, sharp edges. It's not like we're painting hard lines like on armor or on edges of blades. We need to work with their organic shapes, which can be much more difficult because you rely on your ability to paint on thin lines. Be honest, have you ever gotten a spam call or email and you wonder, how the heck do they even get my information? Well, it's likely because of data brokers. Data brokers are companies that quietly collect your personal information from public records, apps, purchases, and websites you use. They bundle your information and sell it to advertisers or anyone willing to pay. You don't get a say and you don't make a dime. And that's why I use Incogni. Incogni automatically contacts all of these data broker sites and demand that they remove all of your personal information, and they do it all for you. So you don't have to go digging through shady websites, emails, or filling out endless forms. It all runs in the background, ensuring that the only one that has your sensitive personal information is you. And they've got an extra feature that I just love. It's called custom removals. So if I ever find my information on a site Incogni doesn't already cover, I simply copy the link, put it into their custom removal tab, and Incogni will handle that removal too. Incogni is also the first and only personal data removal service that has been independently verified by Deloitte, which is the main reason I went with them. They're backed, they're legit, and I know my information is gonna be scrubbed. I'll make the same recommendation to you as I did to my family and friends, and that is join me in using Incogni. And if you use my link down below with code NINJON at checkout, you get 60% off your annual program. So there's no better time than now to take control of your personal data. Now, the key step with this is really having firm positioning on your arms, on your wrists, and onto the painting handle itself, so you have optimal control over the tip of your brush. And the more complex the model is, the bigger it is, the more that these factors can really work against you. We really want to be pulling our brush in consistent strokes whenever possible. However, in a model like Severith here, oftentimes I didn't have that luxury. I either could not find a comfortable position to hold my hands in, or I had to use different brush strokes that lead to less control compared to the pulling motion. So yeah, already this early on into the painting process of this model, I am seeing how much that thin paperclip and the weird position of this model is working against me, making the painting much more difficult than it needs to be. Just hedging my bets here. If this project turns out like ass, I'll just blame this. But truthfully, the painting of this fur isn't what really worries me. I have a bit more wiggle room and the ability to go back and forth to clean up mistakes with the organic shapes here. It's the very tight, tiny details with no room for error that I'm gonna need to paint next that are really likely to be the death of me. I know I've been pretty gloom and doom leading up to this point in the video, but as I'm finishing up this fur, I'm feeling pretty good about it. I like how the colors contrast with our troll, and it does really feel like smooth, interesting fox fur. Now, once I get more paint on other sections of this model, I'll really know how I feel and what other tweaks I need to make on the fur. But for now, I feel good enough for us to keep moving. And the next thing I'm going to paint is the other large section of this model, just so when I finish it, I'll feel like I have most of the model done and I'll feel like I'm moving downhill to finish up all the details. Unfortunately, that big section of the model is white armor. And in case you haven't painted white armor or some other material that's largely white, I will caution you, this is one of those things that you can very easily screw up, so we have to approach this very carefully. Also, I don't have a lot of experience painting white armor, so one great decision after another, John. What I really need to do here is take my time with the base coats. I'm using a silver gray and a green gray as my base colors, making sure they're thinned down enough so each coat is thin with no buildup of grainy texture. And that really is the trick here. You see, white pigments are noticeably larger than any other pigment we use in our paints. So if we apply thicker paints, little bits of texture is going to build up and build up. And we need to control that, because if we get any of that texture, especially over a smooth surface, it's there, you're going to see it, and the only way to fix it is to sand down the entire surface with sandpaper back down to the base plastic. Now, you may be wondering why I'm using two different light grays in this base color, specifically the green gray. The reason is, for the parts of the armor that are facing downward towards the swampy base, I want a hint of that atmospheric green to be influencing the white armor. Not super dramatically, but enough to show that this surface would reflect a bit of its environmental tones. Now, while I took multiple hours putting layer after layer of thin base coats in these off-white tones, I realized what I should have done all along for this paint job, and that was to bust out an airbrush and to do the base coats of this white armor before I painted anything else on the model. Whoops. Damn it. And that's how these things work. You know, you realize you should have done something differently after making the mistake. And if you're like me, you need to make the mistake to understand how to learn from it, so next time you won't make that mistake, you'll make a new mistake. But even though this brushwork took far longer to do, I believe it ended up with like 6 or 7 coats to reach full opacity, it did give me time to strategize how I was going to tackle the extremely scary next steps, which is putting in the shadows and extremely tiny edge highlights on this super tiny and fiddly filigree all over the armor. If this video wasn't going great enough as it was, I've got more unfortunate news for you. While editing the painting footage of this video, I realized I never recorded any of this painting of the shading or the edge highlights. Now, I knew I was not going to be able to paint very much of this on camera. I had to take a 000 brush filled with Seraphim Sepia and run a line through the crevice of each of these tiny filigree details, giving me just enough hint of shade. From there, I had to go with pure Pro Acryl Bold Titanium White and freehand the edge highlights on both sides of this filigree to give it a bit of a highlight. Now, because the filigree was so shallow and so minuscule, there was no edge for me to catch. So I had to do it all by hand, and inevitably made tons of screw ups. You can see the results of these steps on camera right now as I'm going through and filling out the base coats of the dark brown trim around all of this white armor. And yes, painting these shadows and edge highlights across all of this white armor is some of the most difficult painting I've ever done. And I did make a bunch of mistakes. Whether the edge highlight was too thick or it actually pushed into the shadow region, I screwed up a lot. But the good news is I knew exactly what paints were surrounding that mistake, so I'd have to go back in with the shade color again and reinforce that shadow, or just take my base color silver gray on a fat edge highlight and thin it out so we had consistent line depth across all of the armor. It sucks so bad. It really Really sucked. But after I got that dark umber color around the white armor to really put a picture frame on it to see what I think of it, I'm actually pretty happy. I'm pretty excited where this model is going. And we're that much closer to finishing it, which means closer to finishing the project, which is really exciting. Now, whenever I'm working with big projects like something for Golden Demon, I set a pretty strict schedule for myself. And not just when I need to have the whole piece done by, but I break it down section by section. And I gave myself through the end of February to complete Severith. Now, with these two key pieces, which take up a majority of the model complete, I am feeling confident that we can still get there by end of February, which then gives me about 3 weeks to pull it all together, including painting the base and figuring out how to adhere Severith to it and doing a resin pour. Just not gonna think about all that still needs to be done. Not gonna do it. I've said it before, but I'm gonna continue to say it. Thank you so much for your support in following along as we go on a massive project like this. Without your interest, without your engagement, without you watching my videos, I wouldn't be able to continue to do this. And it pushes me to get better, and it pushes me to learn and share what I've learned so all of us can improve on our painting journey. Now, as a thank you for you staying all the way to the end of the video, I've got a secret surprise for you. I just got in the mail the deck of many color samples. These are the ones for me to sign off on to make sure everything is perfect so we can go to full print. And because I can't help myself, I am going to release a video next week on the deck of many colors. I'm going to paint up a model with a random color card and figure out what we can do with it. So if you haven't pre-ordered your decks yet, make sure you check out the link below. You can get the full rundown and you can still get that pre-order special pricing. So yes, I will see you back here again next week. Just make sure that sometime between now and then, you find time in your day to slay the gray.